Welcome to the Sellernomics Podcast, where we share valuable tips and information in the Amazon and e-commerce space. Each week, we deliver the best interviews with some of the top Amazon personalities in the industry to help you grow your business. Today's episode is brought to you by GETIDA, the global leader in FBA auditing and reimbursements. Get $400 in free FBA reimbursements at getida.com/Sellernomics. And now, here are your hosts, Rob Stanley and Lisa Kinski.
Hey everybody, welcome to today's episode of Sellernomics. My name is Lisa Kinski and I'm joined by my co-host Rob Stanley. And today we are talking about one of Rob's favorite topics, which is AI. We've got Max Sinclair with us from Ecomtent to talk about using generative AI to revolutionize your selling on Amazon. So let's go on ahead and bring him on board. Max, how are you?
Hello, good to be here. How are you doing, Lisa? I'm good, thank you.
Very excited to have you on. Thank you so much. So let's just jump straight into the content. AI is a super big topic right now, but what is generative AI? What's the distinction between like regular and...
Sure. So I think this is kind of top of mind for a lot of sellers, right? Because everyone's heard of AI. It's been around for, since the 1950s. And suddenly now we're kind of seeing all this hype about it, and especially since kind of 2022. And there's kind of two things that's happened. And the major thing is this shift in the technology, which has just been developed, which is called generative AI. And really, this is a second wave of AI, because the first AI was used for kind of data classifications and regressions. And I can say, like, when I was working at Amazon, we used to do this to kind of merge ASINs or like find the right attributes to put on ASINs and this kind of stuff. But what we have now is a new type of AI, which can actually generate new content. And by content, we mean images, text, code, video. And going one level deeper into what this actually is, there's been a new type of model built, which is called a GAN, a Generative Adversarial Network. And in here, you have two networks. You have the first one, which is a generator, which is trained on input data and will generate lots and lots of new content. And you have a second one called a discriminator, which will look at the generator's content and the original content and basically say yes or no to see if it thinks it's real or not. And then in the training, you're kind of having this generator create tons of content from white noise, the discriminator deciphering between the generator's content and the original. And they compete against each other, and eventually the generator gets so good it fools the discriminator, and then you have a model which can generate new content. So that's a new technology. It's first started in 2014. It's first really hit the market in the back end of 2022, and that's kind of what is driving this kind of AI revolution as we're seeing now.
Oh, interesting. So Max, could you give maybe a little bit of an example, maybe with what you were kind of just describing, because I got a little bit of that, but people might get a little lost with that. So, and correct me if I'm wrong on this, but if you were trying to figure out either a title for your listing on Amazon or maybe keywords. So let's start with maybe title, because that might be best. It sounds like it's generating a new title, but it's also kind of like comparing it against the old one to maybe see which one's better or figure out whether, why don't you explain it? How about you explain it, or give us a different example if that one's not right?
So I guess, like the classic example is images, and like our core product is images. So I can do that. So for Ecomtent, for example, what's happened to enable customers to kind of generate new images of their products in different lifestyle scenarios, we've trained a model. Well, we fine-tuned the model, but to keep it very simple, we've trained a model on thousands of images, actually the top performing images in e-commerce, which you purchased. And then the model understands, what a lifestyle image is. And then when you put in a new piece of information, the model will then generate something that looks, like its trained image, but a new image based on your prompt. Let's say you say like my bottle on a beach, or create a beach with your specific item on that. And what's happened is that the generator has been trained on millions of beaches. It's then kind of bringing together it's information about what is a beach, taking into your prompt, and also like if it, adding the product if it does that kind of thing. and creating like a new, a net new piece of content that didn't exist before.
Yeah. So here's a question for you, because I've used some tools similar to that, and I've noticed they're really good. Let's say with like a kitchen scene where it's on a table or a countertop of a kitchen, or maybe at a beach. Things I have seen that it gets a little not perfect, and maybe this has been solved, is when somebody's holding something or it's kind of a part of their hand. How have you seen that come along? Is it getting better?
I think it's definitely a problem, and it's an industry-wide problem. So that, like, the state of generative AI is that we have like 5 or 6 base models. We have OpenAI, we have Stable Diffusion, we have Midjourney, we have DALL-E, we have Anthropic AI. There's been this new like French startup who's going to like make the base layer. So there's like 5 or 6 base models, and then basically everyone, including Ecomtent, is like an application layer above that, fine-tuning these specific models. And there is no good base model right now that can really do the hand has always been a problem for whatever reason. And it's very interesting because AI thinks in a completely different way than humans do. And I can give a brief example of this. If humans, when they look at an object, they classify things by shape. If you see like an outline of a cat, basically everyone's going to recognize like a black silhouette of a cat, that's a cat. For AI, they actually recognize things by texture. So if you have like a silhouette of a cat, but it's, blacked out, it's going to be a lot harder for that AI to recognize that particular object, because it kind of identifies based on texture. So that's one of examples saying like we don't really understand how these models work. We're still learning how these things work. It's a black box, and at the moment, hands and holding objects is difficult. That being said, there's so much progress in like the scientific community. Like, it's actually quite astounding how quickly this is all moving, and I'd be confident to say like in 1 or 2 weeks, months, and these things will be solved.
That's awesome.
That's so weird that it recognizes based off texture, because for me, texture is such a, one of our 5 senses things, right? And you have to be able to feel it. And obviously, AI can't feel something, but I guess it can determine like depth of, I don't know. But what I'm still sitting on over here is what you said about AI's been around since the 50s. Yes. And I had to be sure I heard you right. I just Googled it, and yes, I didn't think you were wrong, but I was like, I think I misunderstood that. But is that kind of like, how was it being used back then? Because the only thing that comes to mind of maybe a use case that old is if everybody remembers the movie Willy Wonka and the Chocolate Factory, where they have the machine that was supposed to like give them the lottery numbers or something, and it just keeps spitting out nonsense. Like, what was it actually used for back then?
I think we can now call it as deterministic AI, and it's basically, you would use these models to do something like a data classification or regression. I think the key way to think about this is that the answer that you're looking for is in the existing data set that you've given the AI to start with. So, for example, you would use that to look at thousands of cancer cells and say like these ones have cancer and these ones don't have cancer, or on in an Amazon context, as I said, you could say like this is the right color that belongs on this particular ASIN, because we've trained the data on millions of ASINs, we know what colors they should have, and like we can basically do a regression and say like it's 99.9% chance that this jumper comes in blue, so we're going to like backfill a blue color for this jumper. So you're really looking at kind of these mathematical problems which are doing like data regressions, analysis, this kind of stuff, and it's powered like everything, right? It powers like Google Maps, it powers like what's the quickest way to get from A to B. You've got all the road traffic data, and then you're going, this is the fastest way. What we're doing now is we're generating new content. So you're training it on the existing content, and then you're saying make something similar in properties to this, but change X, change Y. And that's really the shift that's happened. The shift happened based on these like neural network kind of, deep learning, but really the big model is GANs, which I was describing earlier.
And so how, is AI most commonly being used by Amazon sellers today? And my second question to that would be, what's a use case that an Amazon seller could implement today that's going to make the biggest impact of their business?
Wow. Okay, so that's the second question is a harder one, and I don't. I think there's many. I'll start by kind of giving many examples, and maybe people can imagine what the biggest one is. But I think as Rob mentioned, right, like there's SEO keywords, like, and I think when I'm talking specifically now, it's about like these new generative AI use cases have just sprung up everywhere all at once. So there's plenty of websites out there that are kind of like looking at long tail keywords, crossing, like, I mean, we're going to start doing this as well, like looking at different languages and like how like different keywords and different long tail keywords can help you rank higher and drive sales. The big, the most obvious example of this generative AI is these chatbots, right? Like ChatGPT is obviously kind of like the product that like brought this into the public's like imagination. And I know that there's a bunch of companies like Hootsuite and these kind of things, and others, not to plug anyone in particular, who are building like these chatbots, like much improve the experience if you're going to an e-commerce site and kind of typing in, and you're looking for stuff, and you can have like this personal assistant. I think that another example would be, we touched on it, but like this ChatGPT, I've seen lots of examples of people fine-tuning like Amazon specific data on ChatGPT, and then enabling ChatGPT to help you write like seller performance issues, which is something I used to write way back 7 years ago when I was account manager at Amazon, and I know how painful it can be, and these kind of things. And then finally, the big one, which is obviously what we do as Ecomtent, is the content. So we do the lifestyle images, we do the copy, the Amazon listing copy, we do the infographics, like all of that stuff, you can generate now in a few seconds. So there's a long laundry list. I don't know which one is particularly the best. I'm biased, but I think they're all pretty amazing, and like can really augment sellers to work with 10x efficiency than they did like 2 years ago.
Yeah, and it probably depends too. I realized I was asking you a loaded question. Sorry about that. But like it probably depends too on like where the deficiencies exist in the seller's current business, right? Like if they just have bad photography, or if they have no customer service in place, or if their listing is like meh, then it's probably a case by case basis. You guys, we're going to hear a quick message from our sponsor, but when we come back, we're going to keep this AI train rolling. So we'll be back in just a second.
Did you know that Amazon probably owes you money for FBA reimbursements? Get $400 in free FBA reimbursements at GETIDA.com/Sellernomics.
All right, you guys, be sure to head over to GETIDA.com/Sellernomics. Get that first $400 in reimbursements free. We are back with Max Sinclair talking about generative AI and its revolution in the e-commerce industry. I'm going to give the mic back to Rob because he's way more knowledgeable on this topic than I am. And I know he has a lot more questions, so go for it.
Oh, yeah. I've got tons. No, and this is great because I get people asking all the time about scenarios like you were just mentioning, people being able to take their image or their products, put it in the lifestyle images. So I got actually kind of a two-part question, and this will probably be a little bit of a long one. We can kind of loop back around to the second question. So are you guys kind of isolating? I've heard where people are getting their products done in like a 3D image and then taking that 3D image and putting it in these lifestyle situations. And since it's in a 3D sort of format, there's ways to, and this is where it'll lead into the second question about prompting. There's ways to kind of say, don't touch this image, use it exactly the way it is with all the text on it, but put it into a lifestyle situation. Are you guys kind of doing that same thing? And then I'd like to kind of after that, kind of continue on with you a little bit about, telling people what prompting is and leading into the prompting.
So we are not at the moment training a 3D model. We are like keeping a close eye on this. NVIDIA recently launched something which makes this a lot easier. And there's a bunch of like open sourced kind of advancements on like creating a 3D model of an image. Interestingly, when we started Ecomtent, we were going down more this route, which was we would train a model on like 10 photographs of a product, and then we would kind of create an individual AI model of each product, and then we'd put that product into a into a scene. So whilst it's not a 3D model of the product, it did have like 10, 15 photographs. The problem with that was the hallucinations. And this is, I think is like, this is not a bug of generative AI. This is a feature. Like, you're creating new content, and if you're not super restrained, it's going to start dreaming up, like if we do a chair, like a fifth leg, or maybe like slight change of something. And we found pretty early on in our journey that like we need to keep the image like exact, otherwise it's not usable for the customer. Like, it needs to be completely photorealistic. So we stopped doing that. This was, as I said, this is in 2022. We stopped doing that model. We switched to a new model where we basically take just one image of the product, and then we kind of like create an AI scene around that product. So we create the natural shadow, we create the natural lighting, the reflections, whatever else, and kind of like create this AI scene of the product. You can put in humans and everything else, and you can move the product around in the scene. And that's our current use case. I guess the challenge with that is that you're only ever going to get the angle that you originally upload. So the benefit is it takes 2 seconds. You upload a product, you type in a prompt, generate an image. The drawback is that you can't do like the kind of like 360 view of it. So like we're always assessing like the latest and greatest that's happening out there, and like we kind of like our key like pitch to investors, to be honest, is like, look, we have the like talent in house, so we can like assess what's going on, and we can like bring in the latest tech for like this specific use case of like creating like Amazon content. And we'll bring, like, when it's ready, we'll bring it in. Like when video is ready, we'll be doing video. Video right now is not at a stage where it's ready. So like, I don't know if there's any companies you've had on doing video, but like it won't work because like the base tech isn't there yet. But like as soon as that's, as soon as we see a better way of doing it, we'll do it. But not right now. We don't do the 3D models.
Yeah, no, what I was kind of hearing, well, I love what you guys are doing, because somebody could just take a lot of photographs of their product at different angles and stuff and have all these flat images and be able to say, okay, replace it with this one, replace it to this one. I like this scene, but put it with this angle or something like that. So, yeah. Go ahead. We
really debated this for ages, and it felt kind of like intellectually less pure in a way at some point. But then we realized, hey, like the customer can literally upload a photo of a different angle, and then they can generate in a different angle. And like, yes, like we haven't built this like really fancy AI model that like does it all, but like you can still change the angle of your product pretty simply. So once we actually saw customers doing that, we're like, well, forget the other model. Like, we'll just focus on this one because it's more scalable.
Absolutely. And then one thing I want to talk about is prompting. Maybe try to go back and just kind of put in simple words what prompting is and what people need to kind of know about it to be able to do some of the things we're talking about.
So these new, one of the most exciting things about these new AI models is that they can interact in natural language. So that's English, French, Spanish, whatever language you speak. And this is really transformative in the way that we now, like, coding will become a thing of the past very quickly. You will see soon, like, you can already see this in like Amazon Code Whisper and these kind of places. Like, you can type in natural language and create code. And these computers can basically, like, they're very good at, these models are basically big prediction engines. So they're like, so you type in the prompt and it's predicting like the code. So now we can basically interact with computers using natural language. And the slight challenge is, as we touched upon at the beginning, we don't actually know how these computers operate, right? They don't think like a human. One of the great things, another example of like how they don't think like a human, and I think this is one of the big misconceptions of AI, is like humans are fundamentally social creatures. We have like a biological imperative within us to kind of like to seek to dominate and accrue power and all this kind of stuff. Like this is just a very natural human instinct. It's the same in chimpanzees, like, and other social animals. You have like people trying to like rise and become leaders of their clans or whatever. This is totally not how AI machines operate or think. So like it's another great example of like we often project onto these things, oh, they're going to like take over the world, this or that. Like that's crazy, right? It's absolutely crazy. These AI models are not like trying to accrue power. They are doing like specific tasks that they've been trained to do. But it's a big digression to say like we now have this way of interacting with models through natural language text, and like there's a lot of research going on into like how to best phrase that text to best get the right output. And we have 3 prompt engineers in-house in Ecomtent. We basically do a ton of analysis on the customers' queries and what they create, and we mark them basically on 1 to 10 on 2 things. We mark them on 1 to 10 on like how well does the output image reflect the like what we the input prompt from the customer. Like, do we think that's worked well? And then secondly, like how visually appealing do we think this is? Like, is it a worthwhile output? And we have a team who kind of like goes through the prompts, and we have like tens of thousands of these now. So we've kind of developed in-house some best practices around prompt engineering, which like I'm happy to walk through with you guys if it's of interest.
Sure. Yeah. Let's hit
Yeah.
at least the top. I don't know how many best practices there are, but at least let's hit the top 3.
Well, I guess like what we're really focusing on is like the structure. So like the anatomy of a prompt, like how should you prompt? And I'll caveat this by saying this is specifically for generating images, and then I can give some like more generic ones afterwards. So the anatomy is actually very simple. If you're trying to generate an image, you should define the subject first. Like the ordering is actually important in prompting because the machine reads the like first word first, the second word second, and it weights it accordingly. So that's an important factor to remember. So you should put the subject. So if you're generating an image of like a cup, you should say my cup, and then you should say how you want it to interact with the scene. So like on a table, on a beach, and then and then you should put in the location. So maybe like as I said, like on a table on a beach, on a table in a restaurant, and then like at the end you should put in a bunch of descriptors. So like camera lenses, like anything else, like French style room or stuff like this. So that's kind of the best way we found like doing the prompting for images. So that'd be number 1. I'd say on the general point of view, we found that it's kind of an obvious point in a way, but like accuracy is really important. You want to be grammatically correct. You don't want the AI to try and be guessing what your grammar is and your spelling is, and then trying to decipher that into something else. So I mean, we have like empirical data on this. Like if something's spelled wrong or it doesn't make sense, like the output just doesn't look very good. And I think the last thing is to be like specific. So it's important to, and you see a lot of this online about like act as a Amazon marketeer, act as a copywriter, act as a lawyer when people talk to ChatGPT. Like it's important, and like it's a very good reason why people do this, because it's important to be specific, so that the AI can kind of narrow down like what like data of its training data should be referring to. So in those examples, when people kind of assign a role to ChatGPT, what they're in effect doing is saying like, this is like the corpus of data I want you to draw that answer from, and therefore it's going to be of a better quality.
Yeah, absolutely. So just a quick example, Lisa, just to give another example. If Lisa went to these great AI type programs out there that generate images and said, I want a red balloon on a beach, and it'll probably give you a pretty good looking image. Whereas if I want a red balloon on a beach with an island in the background and a red hazy sunset and, people on the beach with tents or umbrellas or whatever, right? It's going to generate something completely different than, because I gave it more description of what I'm looking for. And I can go on from there. I'm just giving a quick example.
Yeah.
So I was at this, just a few weeks ago, I was literally at a little breakout session that was talking about AI and prompting. And one of the things, the person that was kind of guiding us on some of this prompting basically said garbage in, garbage out. And it doesn't necessarily mean, if somebody just wants a red balloon on a beach, it's probably going to give you a cool image. But meaning the more detailed you go, the better the image is going to be that you get out of it. And that was just something I want to share. The other thing I do want to share real quick, learnprompting.org. Take a look at learnprompting.org if you want to find out more.
Yeah. And I say a last thing, which is experimentation. Like even the top, like AI researchers who built these models don't understand how they work. These things are not like, if you go and you expect to get the output after one go, like it's a fallacy. Like these things require experimentation. It probably takes like five, 6 times to try and experiment, and each time you should be like looking at the output, whether it's text or image, being like, oh, it's done this, so I'm going to change my prompt to do that. So it's like, I don't know, made it too long, I'm going to put in like narrow this down to 500 words or whatever it is. And then through experimentation, you're gonna get to where you want to be a bit more.
Yeah, absolutely.
Awesome. I think our last question here today, Max, will be, what do you see for the future of e-com in regards to AI? How is AI going to shift the future of e-commerce?
So this is quite a big question. I think my first view is that it's going to fundamentally change how search works. We've already seen Bing. I think Bing reached 100 million users, Bing AI, within like the first few weeks, like not quite on the levels of ChatGPT, but not far away. Amazon has already put out job offerings and closed them for, under the title of like reimagining search. So you can bet that Amazon will release by the end of the year, if I was a betting man, a kind of co-pilot search thing similar to Bing, if anyone's used it, where you're looking at, rather than going in the main search and getting a big load of category pages, you're getting really targeted. This is what I want, blah, blah, blah. And it's going to take your shopping history. It's going to take, obviously, your query, and it's going to give you 4 things instead and say, here are the top 4 based on your prompts and everything else I know about you. And I think this is fundamentally going to change, like say goodbye to PPC. In my view, like this is going to completely change how search works and how these business models operate. Like, it's no secret to everyone. Every Amazon seller knows how kind of cluttered like the page one has now got with kind of sponsored ads and stuff. And I think search is going to be completely changed. And if Amazon don't do it, you're already seeing startups like, I think they're called like Hey Ollie or something like this, who basically do like ChatGPT but for shopping. And I saw Bing launch something about shopping today. So search is going to change would be my number one thing. I would, and I know you guys are kind of in the more of the operational side of the businesses. I don't think this is all content and search. Like, I also spent a couple of years working as a program manager in the ops teams when I was at Amazon. Like, I think this is going to be coming in a big way in logistics and operations. I think we're going to start to see like self-organizing warehouses where like the AI is understanding, how the different seasonality is working. And like when you're doing warehousing, FBA warehouse at Amazon, it's all about efficiency. It's all about like cutting down like pick times and all of this stuff. And I would see like warehouses that are completely like on wheels, moving around, based off this like using this kind of generative AI technology to basically help to better forecast. Because now, rather than just when we did forecasting previously, you're kind of taking historical data and maybe factoring in for weather or something else. Now you can basically generate new data similar to the other, similar to missing data, or you can take like a country, maybe you're in Singapore, like I launched Singapore, like you can take the US's data, you can fine tune it for like Singaporean stuff, and you can basically create a bunch of data, which is going to help you to better forecast. So I think there's a big change coming in operations. Like my view of Amazon's always been like fundamentally it's like the world's best logistics company, and kind of the marketplace and everything else is, you know, like it's good, but it's, you know, what's really is their defensibility, is their logistics. You know, they don't always get it right, as I'm sure you guys know in you know, GETIDA, but yeah, so those would be two. I think is how like it's going to change.
Definitely a lot to think about. Yeah. Awesome. Well, Max, we are going to hear one more quick message from our sponsor, and then we want to hear more from you about Ecomtent and what you guys are working on over there. So we'll be back in just a second.
Did you know that Amazon probably owes you money for FBA reimbursements? Get $400 in free FBA reimbursements at GETIDA.com/sellernomics.
You guys, be sure to head over to GETIDA.com/sellernomics, get that free 400. Max, tell us about Ecomtent. I know you said that you guys are working on imaging, but tell us more about kind of your business, how you guys got started, definitely about the name. Tell us more.
Sure. So the name is, I think, like I've seen a lot of founders come from Amazon and they always have the worst names. It's because Amazon's shit at branding, sorry for swearing. But the name is e-commerce content. So Ecomtent, that's basically, that's how I came up with the name. I thought it was quite clever, and that's what it's from. In terms of the start, like my now co-founder showed me in September 22, when Stable Diffusion kind of was first publicly released, and he basically showed me the impact of this. And that was like, there was generative AI, but at that time it was all kind of in private testing, and you know, like it wasn't something that you could publicly build on, unlike now where there's this huge open source community. And basically as soon as I saw that, I was like, wow, this is going to change content on, like, not just Amazon, all marketplaces. And basically 99% of the content on all marketplaces is going to be generated by AI in a few years, because you know, like you could get it so much more precise to each individual person. You could refresh it as much as you wanted. Like you could do something for Christmas, for New Year's, for this. Like you could hit all your keywords super easily. All the images could have snow in them. Then they could have like the fireworks, like, you know, then it could be the Valentine's Day. Like you could go crazy in terms of the personalization, and like I kind of saw the potential then. I have to admit, we started basically at day, and also what attracted me to it, to be honest, to quit my job, was like the fact that we were at like ground zero, and that it didn't matter if someone else had like 100 person team. Like the start date was September 2022. It was impossible to do this stuff before, and now it was suddenly possible. And therefore I had the hope that like if we did it and we executed well, like we could be market leaders in this space. And kind of rolling forward, we now kind of can AI generate the entire Amazon product listing. That's the lifestyle images, that's the infographics and the text. We're like, you know, working on the specific Amazon use case. So we like fine tune our models for optimize for Amazon conversion. And that's kind of where we think we kind of are better than the competition. Is like, you know, we know this use case back to front. Like I worked very closely with A9 teams for like 2 years. I know discoverability on Amazon, and yeah, like that's kind of what we've been doing, and it's been great fun.
Awesome. Nice. And you guys are servicing Amazon sellers exclusively? Are you servicing Shopify sellers as well?
We're focused on marketplaces, so we do have Shopify sellers who come and use us, because like our image generation tool is the best if you want to keep your product in it. But like, so like we do have other sellers, but really we're focused on marketplace listings. So like building up those, you know, like infographics, A+ content, all of that good stuff, like Amazon listing copy. That being said, like, you know, if you want to generate good lifestyle images and nothing else, you can do that with us. That's kind of like was our first product, where we started in like November, December last year.
Gotcha. Nice. And can you tell us just very quickly about the pricing model? Because this is something I'm personally curious in. Is it like you pay a monthly subscription, you can make X number of images, or it's by image?
It's a monthly subscription. It starts. We have three subscriptions. We have images only, images and infographics, and images, infographics, and text. That ranges from $95 a month to $165 a month. They are staggered into how many SKUs that includes. So the top one is 50 SKUs. I think the image one is 35 SKUs. But for those 35 SKUs, you can create an unlimited amount of content. So that's like unlimited number of queries, unlimited number of image downloads. So yeah, that's kind of how we work.
Awesome. And if folks want to learn more about Ecomtent or get in touch with you with any questions, where can they do that?
It's on this beautiful banner below. www.ecomtent.ai, ecomtent.ai, or hello@ecomtent.ai.
Fantastic. All right, Max, thank you so much for joining us today and for all this info. Rob, any final questions before we sign off?
Final one, a quick bonus for everybody. So I get to present a lot of times about driving external traffic to your Amazon listing. One of the things I do talk about is using Pinterest, using pins. And this is a great way to generate a bunch of pins quickly with their images and with your image in it, being lifestyle type images. And so Ecomtent is absolutely perfect. I was recommending somebody else, but now that Max has been on the show, I'm going to change all my slides, make sure Max is on there. Content, but it is true. You use it. It's still a very viable source to get external traffic to your Amazon listing with Pinterest and having pins up there. And I'm looking right now, and for a very small amount of money, you can generate quite a few lifestyle images using Ecomtent and put those up on Pinterest.
I know who you're talking about, Rob. And not only are we cheaper than them, they have been, I know them well, they've been fine-tuning for fashion. We have been fine-tuning for e-commerce, like Amazon conversions. So like that's the difference in like our tech, and also we're cheaper. But I'm not going to.
I already got a few people I'm recommending to come your way. So you actually, quick question for you, Max, kind of a personal question in the sense of when people come in, we're talking about prompting. Please explain. They don't need to know prompting. I assume they just need to know how to give you the information for you guys to prompt it and generate.
We have a prompt guide. We've written that. So as I mentioned, like we have done a ton of research in this area. We have written a guide that is like 3 pages long. It's not very dense. It's got like image examples. So it's not a dense document, but basically shows them the anatomy of the prompt, and then like some tips like good camera lenses, good like descriptors for like different kind of inside, outside this, like that kind of stuff. So we've written that guide for them. We also have support. So like we do help, as I said, we have these engineers, these guys basically help customers to kind of get what they want. They're doing like, I'd say tens or hundreds of images a day, right? So they're good at what they do now. So yeah, that's kind of how we do it.
Excellent. Like I said, I got some people I'm sending your way for sure.
Awesome. Well, Max, thank you so much for your time and for answering all of our questions today. This has been wonderful.
Thank you.
Awesome. And thanks to everybody who tuned in. If you liked what you heard, be sure to give us a thumbs up, share your thoughts in the comments, subscribe to the show, and we will see you on the next one.
Thanks for joining us this week on the Sellernomics Podcast. Special thanks to our sponsor, GETIDA. Did you know that Amazon probably owes you money for FBA reimbursements? Get $400 in free FBA reimbursements at GETIDA.com/Sellernomics. Be sure to join us again next week for more great tips on how to grow your business. And thanks again for listening.